The other thing that people ask me about that show is what were we eating when we were eating Bob's leg?
Ah, what were you eating?
It was, I'm pretty sure it was like charred pieces of ham
Okay.
that they blackened the ham. They basically burnt it. And then before the takes, they'd come over and put oil on top of it to make it look grosser.
Mm.
But it was all edible, but I try not to eat too much unless I knew they were going to see my face.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. This is episode number 569, and my name is Henry. This time around, we are going to be doing our first interview of the year, which is with actor April Billingsley, who has appeared in a number of projects: The Walking Dead, Vampire Diaries, HBO's The Outsider, American Made with Tom Cruise, The Summer I Turned Pretty, the Amazon original show, and many others. So thanks as always for being here. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on social media, on Letterboxd, and visit our website, filmbudspodcast.com. We are also on YouTube, just in case you didn't know that. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our interview with April Billingsley. So take a listen. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. And also, so my wife, Elle, she's my co-host too. She unfortunately couldn't make it. She got consumed with work, and so it's just going to be me. But
It's fine.
But either way, thank you very much for taking the time to talk. And yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I guess the first thing I just wanted to ask you kind of out of the gate was, how did you get into acting, and was that something you'd always wanted to do ever since you were a kid, or did you kind of stumble into it like some people do sometimes?
Great question. So I started acting when I was like 5 at an extracurricular thing that my parents were like, here, do this. You might have fun. And I loved it. And I think when I realized that some people had that as a career, at that point, I was like, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want to do anything else? And I think at that time, if I'd known how difficult it was, I might have thought differently. But today, I love it so much. I think that acting sort of at its heart is this, I like to think of it as this idea of a practice in the radical acceptance of all that is humanity.
Sure.
And
I know, that's fair.
yeah, and also really fun and playful, and you're trying to entertain people, but at the same time, really accepting. You really have to be really your character's advocate, no matter how horrible or weird or off or whatever it is. And I fell in love with it mainly because of that, and I can't imagine not acting now. I can imagine doing something else for money, but I'd still, be making my own little short films or doing something.
Well, what was it that what was your first or second job that you said, oh, hey, I'm getting paid for this? Like, what was it kind of the point where like, oh, hey, I maybe could, not that I just want to do it for a career, but now I have a chance to actually go into it.
Make it a career. Well, my first paid acting job, I was 10.
Oh, nice.
But it was for a play downtown in Atlanta at the 14th Street Playhouse. And I had auditioned for this troupe that was going to be a paid thing that I did. And they told me, you know what? We don't know if you're right for a troupe, but my friend is casting this part and it's actually paid. Like, oh. And I ended up doing that for a while. But my parents, because I was very young, they both worked full time, and they were having to drive me downtown every day. And as a young kid working till 10 at night every night after school, my grades just plummeted. And they were like, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. But I had caught the bug, So when I turned 18, I was like, this is what I'm doing, for better or worse.
Yeah. Were there any actors growing up who you really admired, or like whether it be TV and movies or stage actors, anything that you, or even now, favorite actors now, or
Yeah. So I don't know. I always loved Tom Hanks as a kid.
I mean, who doesn't,
Who doesn't love Tom? And he's such, I've yet to meet him. I hope I get to one day, but who knows? But he is such just a wonderful human being too. And today, if I think about it, I really love everything Regina King's done. Every time
Oh yeah.
he's kind of blown away. And I actually got to meet her because I got cast for a day player role in A Man in Full. And maybe that was one of the you normally don't get nervous, meeting stars. That was one of the very few times that she was like, "Hi, I'm Regina." And I was like,
yeah, no, I mean, that's because my wife and I just went to the Albuquerque Comic-Con, and we met some actors from Lord of the Rings and some other things. And that was my first time meeting people in person like that, who I'd watched their movies growing up. And so I definitely had that same kind of feeling.
"Well, what's it like you? Who'd you meet that was?"
We met Elijah Wood and Sean Astin, who were Frodo and Sam. They were there. And then we met John Rhys Davies, who was Gimli the dwarf. And then my wife met some Twilight actors. I mean, it was honestly a pretty. I had never been to a Comic-Con or anything like that before, so that was very starstruck kind of feel for me, but very fun though. But anyways, so with you having done a lot of appearances on different shows and movies and things like that, is something like, let's say, The Walking Dead, is that something that you're just there for a super short time and then you're out? Like, what's the kind of experience of you getting onto a set that you're not necessarily continuing on, you're just kind of appearing there and, getting out?
I think any show that is been around for a little while tends to have a feel of a well-oiled machine. They kind of know how things run. And if you're just a smaller actor coming in for a couple episodes, you do kind of have this new kid in school feel, of like, oh, I don't know anybody. I'm just gonna hang out here and try not to, just do my job. But Walking Dead was everyone actually was really nice on Walking Dead. I try not to talk too much to the big stars unless they, initiate conversation. But they all, I mean, for the most part, hanging out, they spoke to me and asked me questions. And it was very, very cool. I didn't try to bother Andrew Lincoln, who plays too much. But there's this one moment I want to tell you about. So we're in the church, and it's the four walls and a roof episode, and Misha killing me in that. But we're in the church, and I'm sitting there in the pews, waiting to be called, and Andrew's actually sitting right next to me, but he's talking to somebody else. I don't remember who he's talking about too, but he was saying how he didn't like watching himself because of that. Have you seen? Do you remember the scene in Love Actually where he has the cards?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Anyway, so he didn't love the edit of that, I guess, because it was like cheesier than he imagined or whatever. I don't know. But he was like, he didn't say any of that. So don't quote me on that. But after he saw that scene, he didn't like watching himself back anymore. So he doesn't ever watch his work back anymore. And because they were talking about Love Actually, he was speaking about that scene. And I am a little, I watch Love Actually almost every Christmas. And so I just whispered next to him because I didn't want to interrupt, but I couldn't help it. I was like, Love Actually is one of my favorite movies. I watch it every Christmas. And he stopped and he turned to me because I was playing a cannibal, Yeah. And he turned to me and he's like, "You're not a cannibal at all. You're just a big softy, huh?" I was like, "Yeah."
I mean, hey, that's the power of acting, That's cool though. How much were you actually, how many kind of takes were you typically doing on a show like that, or if with the eating scenes or whatever, how many does it vary, with a show like that? Or
I think it varies. With Walking Dead, they had a lot of these very large scope scenes where there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of people and these wide shots, which isn't typical on all shows. Every show sort of has their shooting style. So a lot of the scenes I was in had just tons of people and were these wide shots, and they might do, you know, 3 to 5 takes at most, but still hoping to get it in 1 or 2, right? But because there's so many moving parts, something's inevitably going to mess up in a few of the takes that you hope it's not you, right?
Yeah.
Or whatnot. They're trying to smooth out a camera movement or whatever that is, and takes a few takes. But yeah, if you get it, they moved on though. They were like done.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. Well, with a show, because my wife, it's one of her favorite shows, the Vampire Diaries, and I guess we're talking about makeup and everything. So there's a scene where I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, you have this kind of blood coming out of your, like, crying. Yeah. Okay. And then, so is that kind of makeup? Is that just like the kind of your typical blood makeup? Is it like an extensive process, like in terms of touching it up for shot to shot or anything like that?
So I've had extensive makeup processes before. I actually did this. I'll tell you about that, and then I'll tell you what what Vampire Diaries was. I did an episode of Constantine. It was a show, it wasn't around that long, but I had this nice part in it, but my character died and got this weird, like, rash vein thing and turned a weird color that they then animated in post. But for that, I was in makeup for 2.5 hours, and they were doing all this detailed airbrush work. Meanwhile, on Vampire Diaries, they had special eye drops, that the blood drops that were eye safe, and they put it in my eyes before the take and said, let's go.
Easy up.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, I'm guessing it's fun to have makeup, whether it's, just blood coming out of the eyes or anything like that. I'm guessing it's kind of fun as an actor just to have that, because you never really know what, I guess, the final product is going to be. Like, you kind of really do get to turn into someone who you may not recognize, depending on the extensiveness of the makeup.
I haven't gotten to do a lot of creature makeup. I am kind of a big sci-fi nerd, though, so I have hope for the future. That's not something I've done a lot, but I've died a lot. And so a lot of times the, death makeup or whatnot has been, that one time it was interesting. That's how.
Yeah.
And then I got my eyes gouged out. That was fun too.
Oh,
yes. I had to do a face. They had to, like, get a plaster of my face beforehand, and then so that it fit me perfectly. And yeah.
And one thing with the cast of, like, you're talking about with The Walking Dead, but with other shows, I know you're talking about how they were very welcoming. Do you find that if you go onto a set or even onto a movie where maybe you don't know anybody, you're there for a little bit, do you need to interact with everybody to kind of feel comfortable, or can you kind of just say, these are my lines, this is my part, I can just do my job and get out, and I'm just as confident as if, someone wasn't coming up and introducing themselves to me? Like, do you feel comfortable somewhat either way, or always uncomfortable?
No, I mean, part of being an actor is being comfortable being uncomfortable.
No, true, yeah.
Something we say, and you hear in acting classes all the time, but I would say really interacting with everybody is never going to happen, because sets are huge with tons of different moving parts.
Of course.
And everybody's doing their thing. There's certain people you're definitely going to interact with. So as an actor, you find the base camp PA when you get to set. On a bigger set, it might be the second ED. On a smaller set.
Mm.
But basically, you find the people whose job it is to know where you are at all times, and you make sure you stay in touch with them. And usually the actors you're in the scene with or you're interacting with will introduce themselves to you. Oftentimes there's tons of downtime where you're just sitting in a cast chair while they're switching around a scene.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there for a long time with the other cast members, but not necessarily other people on the set. And then you spend a lot of time with the hair and makeup people, because the whole time they're doing your hair and makeup, oftentimes you'll end up chatting with them or whatnot. So, for instance, on Las Vegas, there was 5 Oscar winners, and then like one character who'd been a series regular before and then me on the call sheet. And for the most part, if I didn't have a scene with somebody, I didn't really interact with them on that show. But they'd be nice, but they weren't like trying to have conversations. And in that case, the actors were of such a high status that they kind of had their own little private places that they went away to so that people wouldn't bug them,
Right. So you aren't going up to Andrew Lincoln, like putting your arm around him and being like, "Hey, buddy." None of that.
These working actors are the nicest people.
Yeah, of course.
If they're not nice, oftentimes they don't continue to work, especially not on high profile type things.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the kind of the bigger questions, what are some, if one or many, or if any, big lessons that from when you first started out as a kid to even to now, any kind of lessons or things that you have really stuck with you, maybe something somebody said to you or an experience you had personally that you said, "Oh, I'm not going to do this again," or "I'm going to make sure to keep an eye out for this," or just an awareness? Is there anything that sticks out to you that you are glad at this point, having done it for so long? It's kind of a big question, but
it is a big question. I would say it's important to be happy with your own artistry. And I think one of the biggest things that I really try to hold near and dear now that was harder for me at the beginning of my career is this idea of stacking your proof, not your doubt. I think almost all actors, no matter how successful or not successful they are, can be very self-conscious or always concerned about their next job, or even the biggest actors are like, well, the movie's on me, what if it doesn't do well, that type of thing. So for me, just this idea of we're all humans, we're all people, just be another human.
yeah.
Don't think about the things that went wrong, just really focusing on stacking the proof, not the doubt, in this type of creative career, I think is important, because that makes you want to continue on. Versus if you think, oh, well, this casting director, for instance, in acting, most of my job is auditioning, right? So it's like, oh, this casting director asked to see me again, they must like me, right? Versus, oh, another audition that I didn't get.
Yeah.
Type of just switching that mentality, I think, has been really, really helpful.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially with something like acting, and no matter what part it is, the kind of I guess the energy you bring to the set can really be contagious. Like if you see someone who's just not having a good time, not acting properly, that can bring the whole kind of vibe of the set down, I would think, as it can with any workplace, really. But I think especially with acting, where you are creating something, if someone's really not bringing their A game or not the right attitude, it can kind of
I think that's mostly true for the higher ups, like the director and the lead actors. Certainly in the opportunities I've had to be a lead actor on set, it's important to know that people are looking to you for the tone and for how things are going, and that just by being at ease yourself, you can put them at ease.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. But maybe as somebody who comes in to do a guest star here and there,
it's not gonna,
attitude matters, but it's not gonna affect the whole set. I mean, you just need to be a human.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah.
Who and not a diva or anything. Like don't be, on set for, you're on set for 3 days and you're like, I need my lunch from, I don't even know.
Your trailer,
I need my lunch in my trailer and I need like 80% protein. Don't be, be nice, be kind, and professional.
Yeah.
I like to say, so one of my teachers, Catherine Dyer, a drumming, she always says, she has her 3 P's: prepared, professional, and working from a place of peace.
Good rules. Yeah. Well, one of the last things, are there any kind of genres or specific shows or movies that you would love to be part of one day? Anything that you're like, oh, if I could get a part on that show, or and even in a certain genre, a certain horror thing, a comedy thing, is there anything that sticks out in your mind as I got to get there, or I hope I get there?
Star Trek
Oh yeah,
or Doctor Who, but also I'm a big sci-fi fan. So shows that are shooting right now, I'd love to be a part of Fallout or Silo or Dark Matter. Also, I really love that show Shrinking that's out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would love to be a part of that because I enjoy doing funny-ish stuff too, and I just think the actors are so good, and the show is like I'm into it. And then also, I love urban fantasy books. There's 2 book series I love. One is the Mercy Thompson series, which got optioned a couple years ago. I can't remember by who, but I don't know if they're just sitting on it, if they'll end up making it or not. And then the Kate Daniels books are both these urban fantasy series that I don't even know what character I would play in, but if I could be anything in those worlds,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, talking about like Shrinking, Apple TV Plus shows and movies too, but especially the shows are underrated, honestly. I feel like there's so much great production value, but I feel like so many times I hear people not having that subscription, which maybe it's still like a niche thing. I don't know, but it's a very underrated platform.
Wait, isn't Severance on Apple TV?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good.
That's another one. Yeah.
Wait, why can't I remember? Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso's another one. Yeah. It's like it's stacked. Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah. Just lastly, is there any other recent projects or anything upcoming that you'd like to have out there? Anything that you're excited about, or you're or maybe you can't talk about it, but
No. Well, I don't have any that I can't talk about right now. But I did a movie recently called Elijah Peel. I'm actually filming pickups for that next week.
Okay, cool.
So I'm excited about that. And it's a cool little project and an indie film, but hopefully it does well. And I have a main role in that. And then there's another movie called The Juggler that it hasn't filmed yet, but I'm one of the 2 leads in that seems like it's going to be really awesome. It's sort of a semi-biographical story about 2 people who kind of fall in love, and one is sort of like into the circus and whatnot. And so I don't want to give too much of that away, but there are going to be scenes where I get to throw a bowling pin on fire or a juggling pin, I guess. Now I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Yeah. So I'm excited to do that as well. And then another thing, I don't need to keep talking.
No,
I wrote some spec scenes for this NPC character from Fallout that I want to play. The character is Southern, and she works in the Hoover Dam, and her boss takes credit for all of her work. And she is the smart one who's getting everything done, but he takes credit for all of her work. And I kind of loved the character, and I looked up, if you look up the NPC, she kind of looks like me. And so I wrote these spec scenes for her, and I have a friend who I've been talking to who's done a couple like fan film type things that we might end up making it. I don't know.
Nice. And in terms of the Southern accent, I'm from North Carolina, pretty good Southern accent.
Oh, well, I'm from Atlanta.
Oh, nice. Okay, then then. So, but
just in the world of film, it seems, at least, because it's been a rough few years, I'm sure doing this podcast.
Yeah.
But it does seem like things are picking back up because there've been a lot more auditions lately that I've seen.
That's good. Yeah, because I know with COVID, obviously, and then now the wildfires, that hit things too. So it's just kind of,
COVID.
Yeah.
So there was the pandemic, then there was all of the strikes.
Yeah.
Then they moved a lot of production overseas. And then now the wildfires.
There's always something.
But it feels like just from, because I'm an acting coach too. So it feels like just from having my finger on the pulse of things, like production is coming back a little bit. So
that's good. Yeah. April, I think that's about all that I have. And again, thank you very much for taking the time to talk, and look forward to checking out all those projects you've been talking about. And we hope to get you back on sometime. And because my wife, again, I know my wife will geek out over the Vampire Diaries and all those things, but
amazing. It's been really fun. I so much appreciate y'all having me, and please tell her hi for me and whatnot. And I'd be happy just to talk to her about it whenever.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. But yeah.
Thanks, Henry.
Bye. All right, well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. And as I said at the beginning, we will be doing more interviews in the coming months. We have some actors lined up, composers, and if there's anyone that you know or you want us to try and reach out to, please let us know. We'll do our best. As always, rate, review, subscribe, all those good things. And thank you very much to all those who have. Share us on social media. And hope you enjoyed it, even half as much as I did. And we'll see you next time, y'all.